today... What's that smell? It smells like... honey.
We are now less than 20 days away from the NHL trade deadline, and we still got a ways to go, but it's going to sneak up before you know it. And the Penguins have a depth crisis, which I've went on record saying before. Who could the Penguins potentially add? Let's find out today in this special PFR that I put together while the Penguins killed the Buffalo Sabres 5-2. I'll go over the game really quick. Let's go over the lines really quick. Not much to change except for a quick flip-flop between Rodrigues and Aston-Reese, and Kapanen also left this game as well. So, same first line, new second line with Aston-Reese on it. Rodrigues down to the third line. He had a very good game tonight. I've kind of bashed Rodrigues in the past, saying he's the new Dominic Simon, and he can't finish chances. He had a lot of good chances tonight. He's not a bad player. I just think he's better suited for the bottom six, and he had a goal tonight, and he was on the bottom six. Sceviour, Gaudreau, and Angello. We'll get to that Gaudreau assist later. Same defense. Jarry's in net. Same injuries. Hopefully Kapanen does not add to it. The Sabres entered this game on a 14-game losing streak, have not won since mid-February against the Devils. They've now lost, of course, 15 straight now, and Dustin Tokarski is making his debut in the NHL for the first time since 2015. Remember him from the playoff run the Habs had back then? Quick trivia question, though. Comment down below if you know where Dustin Tokarski played last season. I'm curious to see if you guys know this one. They did mention it in the broadcast today, but he gets the start, and the Penguins have been off for 2 days. Played 7 games in 9 days, I believe. And, they came out flying. They beat the Sabres 1-0 from Rodrigues. It was a nice saucer pass from Lafferty. Letang got a goal. First line was working hard there. Dahlin did score. John Marino did score. Also in this one was a point shot. It was on a 4-on-4. And then Zach Aston-Reese got an amazing pass from Frederick, not Johnny Gaudreau, on a shorthanded chance. And that was the goal of the night. The Penguins were up 4-1 after that one. They left Crosby open in the third period. He scored as well. The Penguins won this one 5-2. Of course, Victor Olofsson got a penalty shot after Mike Matheson tripped him. And Penguins won this one 5-2. It is what it is. Penguins, they outshot the Sabres. They had 41 shots in this one. There goes the Minnesota Whitecaps logo. That one's been bothering me for a long time now because it doesn't stick well. Anyways, let's get to the main event of the night because PFR, do you want me to react to the Penguins game? Exactly what I expected. Penguins beat the Sabres 5-2. And we play them again tomorrow night, so that's great. 2 more points, hopefully. Knock on wood. Who can the Penguins add at the trade deadline? Now, the Penguins have literally nothing to give up. Pretty much Nathan Legare, Samuel Poulin. We have a first in 2022, but we only have 5 picks this upcoming draft. 3 of them are in the 7th round. Article on Pittsburgh Sportscastle about can the Penguins even afford to buy, essentially. I think they can, but they're not going to buy big. So I have a list of, I don't know the exact number, but bringing out the hockey cards for this one. These are all potential names I could see fitting the Penguins. These aren't who I'm suggesting. Big clarification there. I put on Twitter, I'm like, who do you guys think you would want? I read a bunch of articles, Pittsburgh Hockey Now, shout out to Dan. These are all names I saw floating around. Dumb cap-friendly posts from good actual trade recommendations. All of that is in this pile. I don't have some cards, that's why I'm doing sticky notes for them. Now I'm going to rank them on a trade scale, the Owen Krebs trade scale. If they're cheap and effective, I think they fit the Penguins the most. If they're pretty much a big trade, what you would expect from Jim Rutherford, getting like a Jason Zucker, I'd put him towards the middle. I'm not 100% opposed on the Penguins doing that, but I'm like 90% opposed to the Penguins doing another one of those type of trades. Also, in this category, I have like project players, and then I have a no thanks. Now, next PFR video, that's a little note for me to mention to you guys. I've seen a lot of some comments and suggestions about Samuel Poulin and Nathan Legare joining this team. That's going to be next videos. This video, I'm going to be going over who the Penguins could add within the NHL. Next video, I'm going to be going over who the Penguins can add outside of the NHL, because let's face it, there's not much to recap. We're playing the Sabres in these back-to-back nights. There's no way I'm going to have enough magnets. But our first name is a former Penguin. Brandon Sutter. Currently scratched. I just got the notification that Bo Horvat's going back in the lineup. Brandon Sutter, unrestricted free agent at the end of this season. He's about $4 million. The Penguins need center depth if Malkin is going to be out for a significant amount of time, but it's not going to be Brandon Sutter. No thanks. Now, this is our first project player, also from the Canucks. These are ordered by teams. Jake Virtanen. Interesting player. He has 2 years left. He'll be an RFA. He's still very young. He's produced, I think, 60 points. Around 60 points was his career high. He's struggling this season because the Canucks are struggling this season. He's obviously going to be in that project range. I wouldn't be opposed for the Penguins getting a player like him. There hasn't been any linking of the two, but I don't really necessarily see that happening. I don't think the Penguins need to take on another project player. I think they already have one in Jared McCann. And what I mean by project player is a player that has a lot of potential and could be a very good, point producer, scorer, things like that. The other names on this list we'll get to as well. I don't think the Penguins need to add a guy like that because they're already, focused on McCann. We need guys that can contribute, not guys that will just go on little spurts like McCann. Another former Penguin. This one was in the thumbnail. I saw it suggested he's a pending unrestricted free agent as well. Tanner Pearson. No. Just no. This next player is a name that I've had interest in over the past couple of months. A very intriguing name for me. It's Rickard Rakell from the Anaheim Ducks. I'm putting him in the kind of towards the top on this one because I kind of like Rickard Rakell. But he's going to be, pretty pricey to get. I would at least say a first or maybe a second. I don't think the Penguins have that. People still think he's young, though. I'm pretty sure he's like 27, though. Don't see it happening, but I wouldn't mind it. Also from Anaheim, Derek Grant and another former Penguin. This is towards the cheap and effective, but Derek Grant is finally getting recognition for how good of a player he is, and he's actually at $1.5 million for the next 3 years in Anaheim. He only plays really good in Anaheim, which is interesting. He's one of those players like David Perron in St. Louis who only plays good with one team. He goes to any other team, he sucks. Derek Grant, while it's tempting, a cheap under-the-radar player, I don't think it's going to happen. I'll put him also with the other former Penguins in the no thanks bin. This one's interesting because I kind of forgot about him. Carl Soderberg from Chicago now. He's with the Blackhawks. He's on a 1 year, $1 million contract with them right now. He's a pending unrestricted free agent. I'm putting him up in the cheap and effective. I think Soderberg would be a good ad if the Penguins can get him. The problem is, however, the Blackhawks could make the playoffs this season, and I don't think they would want to give up a player from a roster that is heading in the right direction. That's completely different if they don't decide to re-sign Soderberg in the offseason, but I don't think the Blackhawks are going to necessarily be sellers. I wouldn't mind Soderberg, though. I wouldn't. This one was suggested to me on Twitter. Tyler Ennis. I'm going to say no, just because Ennis has been traded so many times before at deadlines, and he's always the go-to cheap rental player. He's currently at Edmonton right now. Edmonton has a lot of UFAs, and again, with like how I said with Chicago, Edmonton's in a playoff hunt. I don't think they would be selling. This one goes down here towards the no thanks. This one is bold here. Matthew Perreault from Winnipeg. They definitely want to get rid of him. They waived him. Perreault, he is an unrestricted free agent. He's making over $4 million, though. He's a good player. He also wears my favorite number. I wouldn't mind Perreault because the Penguins need a third-line center. Perreault is a third-line center on a good team. I don't know what you would give up because I don't think the Jets would want that. He doesn't go up here for me in the cheap but effective, but I'm putting him kind of towards the middle because I wouldn't mind that. Problem is cap space, though. This one I've seen on cap-friendly posts, and no. Alexander Kerfoot from Toronto. 1, don't think the Leafs are going to trade him. 2, no. He still has 3 years, I think at $3.5 million. I don't want a player from the Leafs. I don't want an overanalyzed trade. No. The Leafs would want a lot for him. No. Speaking of wanting a lot for him, but also, do they? Because he only has 3 goals on the season. Taylor Hall. There was a category below no thanks, I would put him there. Speaking of overrated, Sam Reinhart. Good, solid NHL player. He's not a good top 6 forward, though. I would see him as a third-line right winger. He's making $5.2 million. Guess who makes less money than that and is a far better player? Brian Rust. A restricted free agent at the end of the summer, so you don't want to have to deal with that. Reinhart, in my opinion, is kind of a project player as well. And I know he's had decent numbers in the past, but that's honestly because he's been playing with Jack Eichel for the majority of his career. I'm putting him in the project players and towards the no thanks because I don't see him fitting on the lineup. Where would he play? He wouldn't play with Malkin, in my opinion, because you got Kapanen on the right side, and then you have Russ on the top line. You play on the third line, and then he doesn't have a good center to play with. This is the first one, though. Eric Staal. Sue me. I love Eric Staal. Loved him in Carolina. Didn't like him when he went to the Wild just because I don't like the Wild. But I think Eric Staal, and Eric Staal is my second highest player that I would want to join the Penguins this season. Is it weird that we're saying that he's underrated when he was one of the best players in the league from like 2008 to like 2012 or something? He's digressed like any player has, but he's still really good. He had like a 40-goal season with the Wild a few years back. He's one of the best players on the Sabres. He's playing for the Sabres. It's hard to be good on that team. And, you know, he's played good as well. He's been the most noticeable player in every Penguins-Sabres game. It would be cheap to acquire him, and I say the Penguins do it. I think it would also fit well with Crosby and Malkin, given that it would be an older center depth group, but still a lot of experience. He's also won a Stanley Cup. Eric Staal is my second pick to be the Penguins' third-line center and trade deadline acquisition. Cody Eakin, also from Buffalo. Not a fan of him because he's a ginger and also because of that Vegas fiasco a couple years ago against the Sharks. No, just joking, of course. Eakin, he's got 2 years left. I don't know. I don't see it. He's kind of washed up, in my opinion. I'll put him towards the bottom as well. This is another player that is a project player, Sam Bennett. Cheaper deal, around a little over $2 million. RFA at the end of the season, though. Not sure what Calgary wants for him because they kind of want him off their hands, but also they would like to get something back for him as well. I'll put him towards the middle. I would rather have a guy like Virtanen, but I would have him over Reinhart. All right, this is our first player that I do not have a card of. That's Conor Garland. I am very opposed, as I mentioned before in this video, in multiple articles I've written before, in multiple videos I've made before. I am against the Penguins trading another first-round draft pick or Samuel Poulin or Nathan Legare. But if there's one player that I would be okay with it for, it's Conor Garland. Conor Garland is still on his entry-level contract, and he is arguably, sorry Phil about what I'm about to say, he's arguably the best player on the Arizona Coyotes. And they're looking to trade him. The Coyotes are looking to trade Conor Garland. He's very young, he's very good, and he's the type of player that comes up from Wilkes-Barre. I know he didn't go from Wilkes-Barre, but he fits the Penguin system perfectly. Would love it if the Penguins got Conor Garland. I wouldn't be that mad about how many futures was given up. He's the only exception I have to that, though. If the Penguins trade a first and a second for Taylor Hall, I'll be pissed. If they trade a first and a second for Conor Garland, I'm going to group these three players here because they're all from the same team and they all kind of fit the same bill. Calle Jarnkrok, Victor Arvidsson, and Mikael Granlund. All from Nashville. Nashville is struggling hard right now, and everyone is up for sale except for Josi and Rinne, is what David Poyle has said. Arvidsson is the best player out of those three, but he has term. I think he has 4 years left on his deal, over $4 million. If you go out and acquire him, that's obviously going to be a big price and a big commitment. Granlund's an unrestricted free agency. Why do I keep saying unrestricted free agency? He's an unrestricted free agent at the end of the season. So that way he would be a little bit cheaper. He's just under $4 million, and Calle Jarnkrok has 2 years left at $2 million. They're all kind of the same type of player for me. Arvidsson, the best out of them because he's a winger, a good scorer. I would say Granlund out of the three, but really I think all of those players make too much money, and I think Nashville would want too much out of them. I'll put them towards the bottom here if this magnet will even hold. Ryan Dzingel. This is another player that's been traded at a lot of deadlines before. He's currently with Ottawa right now, who would definitely want to sell him off. But he's making like $3 million, which is too much for a player of his stature, in my opinion. I'll put him towards the bottom because I don't see it happening. I don't really see him being linked to the Penguins. He's just kind of there, honestly. And I was just looking through rosters. Saw he was a UFA at the end of the year. There's a possibility it could happen, but not for me. This is one I've discussed before in some of my articles and on this channel. Kyle Palmieri, probably 100% getting traded. Makes a lot of money for a player that's kind of older and like him. And the Devils will probably want a lot out of him. I think it's a good fit if none of those things apply. I think it would be perfect to come to the Penguins if they gave him if he would just magically show up on the roster. But due to the price tag, I'm going to say no for Kyle Palmieri as well. Bobby Ryan bought out in the offseason, so now he's on a one-year deal with the Detroit Red Wings at League Min, and he's an intriguing player and 100%, in my opinion, going to get dealt at the deadline as well. I would love to see him go to the Penguins, but also don't really see where he could play. Bobby Ryan probably needs a good center with him, and the Penguins don't have that. So for that reason, I'm going to put him towards the middle. Same thing goes with Vladislav Nemestikov, also in Detroit. He's making about $2 million. He has 1 year left on his deal. After the season, though, I don't know about him. I think another team would probably take him, the team that actually has more to give. I think it would cost about a second or a third, which the Penguins don't have. So I'll put him towards the mid stages in this one as well. Now, if there's one player, and I know you really can't see any of these, but the players that I think would fit the Penguins bill the most would be maybe Matthew Perreault if you move out some cap space, Conor Garland if you want to go for a big trade, Carl Soderberg would be a good rental, Eric Stahl would be a good rental, but in my opinion, the player that is the best rental and the best option for the Penguins is number 56, Erik Haula from the Nashville Predators currently. He's making just under $2 million. He is a very underrated player. He has experience in the playoffs with Vegas, and I think he would be cheap because the Predators are selling, and Haula is, to bottom six forward. I think slotting him on the third line while Teddy Blueger gets healthy and maybe is just the new third line center would make so much sense for the Penguins. Haula is my number one choice. Thank you all for watching, going through this crazy fiasco for the Penguins could potentially trade for. Been pretty silent, though, the trade market, except for there was a trade today. There was like some minor guy traded. But things are going to heat up, and I think Ron Hextall will make a trade. Even though I mentioned in my Pittsburgh Sportscastle article that, he's not Jim Rutherford. He's not going to go after Taylor Hall this year. But I think he could add a player, and the players that I want him to acquire the most are Eric Stahl and Erik Haula. So the two Erics, not both at the same time, but Penguins need a third line center, and I think those guys fit the bill. Thank you all for watching. The Penguins win this one. There was a game tonight as well. 5-2 over the Buffalo Sabres. Thank you all for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Mighty Ducks review coming probably early next week. Thank you all, and I'll see you guys tomorrow for the Sabres again.